Yo, 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 what is going on, COD Familia? It is your boy BN. Today, we are going to be listening and reacting a bit to GUNZ's video where he talks about him getting banned, but we're also going to expand on what I think is a bigger picture, bigger storyline that builds from this, not only for CCs like GUNZ, myself, and others, but also the community. And why is it that this is something objectively and respectively we should be worried about until we see better change? As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you throw us off. Because that was a lot. Thanks. Here we go.
Well, it was interesting because I was playing with my boy Future. I was sitting there in the front lines with the Real Pistola account, and I was letting my main heal. I was just sitting there playing on a solo account on the front lines. Just, we had just gotten long range warfare. I was super excited to try it out. And then boom, on my screen, a thing popped up that said, update available, must restart game or something like that. And I was like, yo, Future. I was like, there's a new update. I was like, maybe it's info on the new infantry, maybe Row League, something like that. So I boot up the game again and bam, banned. I was like, what? No way, bro. So, like I said, I hit them up and yeah, it flagged me, and essentially I don't know what their system actually tells them. I've been trying to get them to tell me like exactly what it was. That they don't really disclose that. All it says was synchronization between my Real Pistola account and this account. So talking with the content creator, community managers, I'm trying to tell them like, look, this is my like everyday activities. It could potentially be that I swap from account to account pretty regularly throughout the day. It could be that I play a very, very similar style on each account, which is the same style because I'm the one playing them. And then on the other part, it's like maybe it's all the right clicking I do. Sometimes I do play on two accounts, but it's on two separate devices.
Yeah, wouldn't that be wild though if the system is flagging him or just anyone in general for a particular click or maybe set of clicks or motions that you're doing? And I say all of this to say, like, let's be honest, GUNZ streams, more often than he puts out videos, if not maybe 50-50-ish, but usually it's a little bit more. And he also streams for, a very long time. And so in most cases, when you're able to see him play, especially even more importantly, when he's streaming, he is streaming his gameplay, him actually fighting and playing the game in that regard. So it would be very difficult, and I'm sure even if it was true, it would send shockwaves, right? But we know that it's not, at least until proven otherwise. And clearly, with him getting unbanned at this point, it shows that, listen, there's some opportunity for improvement in the system. And it's just a matter of having a level of acknowledgement and taking some accountability on that, and also publicly addressing it. So I'm going to let him get to one more piece here when we start on the personal merits, and then I'm gonna react to it because he says something here that I think is really important that we're going to talk about, and then I want to add on to the situation.
Take a look over here on the personal merits. I'm ranked 5th out of the entire server, so I've been putting in work. Think about that. In a top tier KVK, I miss out on a total of like 3.1, 3.2 million free healing, right? So now I finally get unbanned, and then BDO is just straight blitzkrieg rushing us. Pop build buff, build all the way around, but ultimately, thanks to RNGesus, we had this choke point here, and that's pretty much where their push stopped, and we just been fighting all over again now. So now we're working on pushing them out. So I guess the main purpose of this video that I'm trying to make is to try to tell you guys that, yes, I'll be completely honest with you guys, I was super salty, right? I felt that, I've been a content creator for them for a year and a half. I thought that they would just unban me because they would believe me. But then at the same time, I had to put all my biases aside and see it for what it is. Like, boom, I got flagged. An investigation needs to be made regardless if you're a content creator or you're someone that farms in zone 1 the entire time, right?
I
So
could do that, by the way.
from the the biggest spenders to the no spenders, everyone still needs to be investigated, which is fine. And so I had to put all that aside and think, okay, you know what? I'm happy. I'm happy that they're making the system more aggressive. Unfortunately, I was a victim of this new system that they're trying to put in place to detect cheating. But ultimately, it's going to end up for a better Call of Dragons experience. So that's pretty much what I got out of it. Yeah, I missed out on 15 pet warrants, 3 dailies that I could have bought. All the free healing that I mentioned. I could have probably had like another 3 or 4 million merits on this account, which would have gotten me closer to 4th place. But it is what it is, guys. You can't not everything you can control. I try to remain as positive as possible, guys, when it comes to this. But yeah, I mean, it was really tough. Anyways, I know that.
So I want to comment here because I really think GUNZ is underselling this. Like, I understand him wanting to have a positive outlook on the situation, and I think that's all well and good. And the fact is that yeah, you could potentially box it up to say that okay, they're testing a new maybe they were testing a new ban system, maybe they had made improvements, and this is like their V2 cycle that they're going through, and GUNZ just happened to be one of the innocent bystanders along with others that got hit and affected. But when you really think about it, right, GUNZ is kind of, he's on the full time content creator train, right? He's publicly stated before that, the majority of his income comes from streaming. Videos do well, but that's really where his bread and butter is. So when you are banned on an account that you would like, especially because he could have been streaming, 1 or 2 of those days, if not both, and you miss out on that potential. Now it's not just about your account. Like, this isn't, one of BN's scouts being banned. Like, that doesn't really affect me too much, right? Because I've had a couple of my scouts banned before. But that's not as nearly, and it's not even in the same stratosphere of impact to me because I have so many accounts, right? Compared to someone like GUNZ, and more specifically because he is fighting with those accounts out on the field. So when he's unable to showcase that, right? That, you don't typically see, and I say that because you don't typically see GUNZ doing, like watch parties all the time for a bunch of KVKs, something like I would do to show off a lot, right? He wants to play. He wants to be front and center. He wants that to be one of the more main focuses, again, based on how it seems, right? From what he usually shows on an average basis. And so when you are banned, I could only imagine, right? Especially when there's fighting going on, there's attention, there's hype, there's engagement, there's interest and intrigue in wanting to watch that. It couldn't have been a good feeling. And then thinking about right the amount of money lost and the opportunity lost because of him being banned. And now this kind of gets into my bigger picture, which is when we think about all of those bans that happened, right? And we covered it when they stated like there was the 900,000 plus accounts that were banned. And we'll talk about this a little bit more in a future video because I do have something to show people too as well. But for me, the challenge is that it's so much bigger. Like, you take GUNZ's situation, except now you need to amplify it a bit more and then also multiply it. And and what I mean via amplification is you have to think about how many people that were spending on the game. And let's talk about the spending and the free to play. So let's start with the spenders. You could argue the spenders are maybe more impactful than the free to play, again, because it just directly affects the game's bottom line as a business in order for them to sustain, keep the servers up and running, supporting the game, and to keep pumping out new content as well, right? So you think about the amount of spenders, and let's take Ransom as an example, right? He was, I believe, one of the R4s from 513 that I interviewed. He was a spender. Not to say that he was heavy or low, but he had told us he had spent money on the game. And it was one of those situations where he was banned, they've been unbanned, and he now said, yeah, I'm probably going to be a little more cautious about how much I spend, where I spend, when I spend again. And regardless of if that's happening in real time after the unban or not, that's, again, to be seen. But he's explaining how he felt in the moment. And this has to be a similar feeling for other people that spend on the game as well. If you are getting banned and false banned, it's not just the fact that you got banned and you got flagged. You also have to consider what you missed out on, which I really appreciated the fact that GUNZ went into some detail here on what he missed out on. Because it's not just that, but it's probably more than that as well, right? Depending on how much you're spending. And so you're missing out on what are PvP related resources, items, bundles, packs, etc. And those are things you can't necessarily get back, right? And so, like a great example, daily deals. You miss out on daily deals. It's not like you can double back and buy the daily deal from yesterday, to my understanding. And so that's lost. Amount of free healing, right? That's lost. And so, you look at it from that perspective, and it starts to compile, right? The longer that you're banned. And even if you've been banned more than once. And we know that was the case because in 331, I'm forgetting the kingdom now, right? The or three was it 310? Yeah, 310 and versus 36, right? The FSK Lion KVK. We know that there was a couple players from Lion that had got banned a second time. So it wasn't just the first ban, right? They got unbanned, and then Kyle was talking in World Chat saying, oh, yeah, so like I'm paraphrasing, but essentially, oh, yeah, people are going to get banned again. And then some people got banned again. Now, this isn't to say that it was a lot of players, but some people did get banned a second time because I know some people reached out to confirm that with me. So you have to think about what does that do to you psychologically when, especially if you spend, I could only imagine that like there has to be a level of caution and fear that follows that, which is an organic, just normal response, I would imagine, is right, because now you're just like, well, am I going to get banned again? I mean, that has to at least either pump the brakes for you or make you think about that a little bit more, to have a little bit more self-awareness on that. So then you get to the free-to-play side, which is, okay, well, clearly we know you need free-to-play players. You can't just necessarily have a kingdom builder where it's only all spenders that play, right? I've never seen a kingdom builder where like it's only all spenders, right? And free to play players make up a good chunk and percentage of any kingdom builder. And so and keep in mind, the thing about the free to play part is it's a lot easier for free to play to potentially disengage and to say, all right, dude, I got banned for no reason. Like and again, I say this objectively, I'm just not going to play the game anymore. Like worst case scenario. It's easier for them to walk away because they don't really have any money invested. They have time investment, which is, of course, different, and it is still a form of investment, but it's not anything financial, not anything monetary. And so, again, my point in saying this is to say that if you're going to introduce a system and you're going to do ban waves, right, maybe do a sample size, right? Maybe do a small pool. Maybe don't apply it game-wide, but do small batch testing so you can fine-tune the system, and then you can apply it game-wide, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Because when you're coming out with a system and it applies across the entire game and it's not fine-tuned, it's not cleaned up, and you have situations of people developing or generating false positives, which we know has happened before, and it happened a bunch of times in this recent ban wave, it's just, respectfully, it's not a good look. There are better ways to improve your system and to test your system. So yeah, that would be my advice, is don't apply it for the whole game. Do small sample size testings, fine tune, work out the kinks, and then slowly keep growing the pool, right, of kingdoms that you include in that. And maybe the stuff you do game wide is for like the stuff that you were just 100% absolutely sure of. But I'm going to be honest, I just don't know how much longer stuff like this can keep happening. Right? Because this is at least the third time minimum that this has happened in the past year and a half. And I just, the thing that I think of is, when is the community's tolerance going to explode? Right? It's like a balloon that just keeps filling and filling and filling until it eventually pops. And that's my worry. That's the thing I don't want to happen, right? I want the COD team and the dev team to have a handle on these things, right? To approach them in a caring and accountable way. And so that's my hope, right? Going forward, is that because of how big this was, hopefully, not only will we see improvements, but we'll see a little bit more care and caution from their team with how they plan to address these things going forward. Because, and again, I say this, and I'll keep saying this just to preface, subjectively, the what happened in this recent way is just unacceptable. From a community standpoint, it's unacceptable. And I think anyone can look at that and say, like, yeah, that is the case. And that's constructive criticism, because you can look at that and make improvements from that now. You have that opportunity. You've always had it. And so that's what I hope happens going forward. Those are my thoughts. Honest, or maybe too honest, but again, I think it's important to provide good educational, constructive criticism for how we see things as outsiders looking in, and also for people that are in it on the inside looking out, I guess. So I'd love to know your guys' thoughts, because I think, to me, this is a bigger community point or storyline on, if you're someone who got banned, or if you got banned, how would you take that? Especially if you knew you didn't do anything wrong, and then later it came out, whether it was that same day, days after, whenever the ban was expired, and you found out that, oh yeah, I was falsely banned. I'm just curious, like, where do you go from there? Is it, you know what? Okay, the system's okay. It's doing what it did, right? Maybe take a little bit more of the GUNZ approach, right? Yeah, it absolutely sucks. I'm obviously not happy about it, but I'm not going to change my habits. Or do you take a different stance and you're like, no, I probably would change my habits. Maybe it's just temporarily until I feel like things are stable again. Or no, I'm going to change these for the foreseeable future. Like, I'm just curious on where some of you might land on that. Let me know in the comments below. That's it for me. As always, until next time, we will catch you later.